What do you get if you cross the need to do seasonally relevant content with a powerful desire for another jammy custard? Well, you make pumpkin pie and cranberry sauce cookies, of course. What else? It's that time of year already, pumpkin spice time. I've never cooked with a pumpkin before, so this is going to be interesting. Apparently that's the sound of a good one. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about the jammy custards. And then it dawned on me that we're hurtling towards autumn, if we're not there already, really. The leaves are turning brown, fall is falling, autumn is approaching. Thanksgiving is around the corner. And I thought, well, what can I do that's seasonal? Pumpkin leapt to mind somehow. Take you through the ingredients real quick. I decided to go with a whole wheat flour. It's got a rougher texture. I want a kind of rustic texture. It's quite rough, quite chunky, substantial. And that's why I've also decided to go with oats. So I've got just regular cheap ones, and then I've got the more expensive jumbo oats. Combination of the two. Chopped hazelnuts, because nuts are great, and hazelnuts especially have got that great flavour. This is demerara sugar. You could use turbinado. I'm not really sure what the difference is, but I think it's very similar. I have golden castor sugar, so it's a super fine sugar, not icing sugar, like one up from that. And then I've got some dark muscovado sugar, so that's got an almost treacly flavour to it. Last time I used corn flour, to give it a bit of delicacy. And then this time I've decided I'm going to use potato starch. It acts as a skin almost. So I want to see if I can use it to bind the ingredients together. Might not work, but we'll see. Hopefully give it that lightness in texture as well, just so it's not really dense. I want it to be chunky and comforting, but I just don't want, something that's unpleasant to chew on. Oil, just sunflower oil again, quite a neutral flavour. The jam that I'm going to use is cranberry sauce. I have this little jar of mixed spice that went out of date 2 years ago, so I'm going to chuck a load of that in. And that is cinnamon, coriander seeds, nutmeg, clove, pimento, which is allspice, and ginger. Pop in some ground mace. This is the sort of membrane that grows on the outside of a nutmeg, so it's got a similar taste. It's a bit sharper, a bit more aggressive. Custard powder, all important to go with the pumpkin in the middle. Vanilla extract, because of flavour. Malt extract, it's got the sweetness, but then it's also got some kind of background notes to it as well. Baking powder for a bit of lift. First job, I think, is to get the pumpkin into the Instant Pot. There's like a mug full of water in the bottom of the Instant Pot, because you can't dry cook anything in there, it'll just cut off. And there's also a steamer basket, because the pumpkin will hopefully be really soft when it comes out once it's cooked, so that will just make it easier to pull out. Using a sharp knife, I will save the seeds because I'm going to roast them and they're delicious. If any of you have tried the jammy custard recipe, be sure and let me know in the comments. We'll pressure cook this for 5 minutes. It will take 5 minutes to come up to pressure, so that's a bit more cooking time, and then I'll let it natural vent for 10 minutes or so. So it is getting much more cooking time than 5 minutes. The oven is on at 160, just to preheat. It's going to be quite a low temperature. That is 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So I have 2 different types of oats. As I say, the cheap ones and then the jumbo oats. I use Flavorhands brand. I really like the texture that they've got. So 30-20, use whichever oats you like. 35 grams of chopped hazelnuts. Got half a tablespoon of the potato starch. Half a teaspoon of the baking powder. That's, as I say, to give it some rise, bit of lift, so hopefully it won't be quite as dense. 30 grams of golden castor sugar and 20 grams of the dark muscovado. Half a teaspoon of cinnamon into the biscuit mix. And then that should hopefully pair up nicely with the mixed spices in the filling mix. Just mix everything together The brown sugar especially has a tendency to clump up, and any lumps that you can see, just give them a little pinch. I need to chill the dough before it goes in the oven, so I've turned the oven back off again. Make a little well in the middle and add the oil. I'll add half of it for now, so it's 160 mils in total, so it's got 80 in at the moment-ish. And just slowly start bringing it in together. I'm just being a bit cautious because I don't know how whole wheat flour reacts to oil. Go in with hands and squeeze it together. Okay, it's a bit dry. I've poured another 40 mils of oil out. I'll put 20 in, see how that looks. I'm reluctant to put more oil in it because I think it might just become very fatty. I'm adding in some oat milk. Maybe a bit of moisture will help. There is a recipe for the oat milk. I'll put the link in the description for you. So this has had 30 mils of milk in it. Hazelnut milk will probably work really good in here. I think we're in a good spot. Okay. Oh, nearly! That's 2 tablespoons of the demerara sugar. The demerara is in there because it gives a really nice crunch. I'm worried that it is still a bit crumbly. I just don't want it to fall apart as you bite into it, especially because it's a sandwich biscuit. Yeah, let's do it. So I think that was another 20 mils. That feels better. It might be very fatty though when I cook it. 570 grams of dough. So if I divide 570 grams by 18, because I want 18 individual biscuits, that would make 9 altogether. Work the dough in as you're lifting, push down at the same time, seems to help a bit. And take a moment or two just to pat down the edges a little bit, just so you don't get any burned bits. Try and get the dough as even as you can in there, just so it bakes evenly. Although it's not a massive deal if you don't, it's totally fine, but it will bake unevenly. I'll put each tray in the freezer for 20 minutes or so. Now that the dough is chilling out in the freezer, it's time to crack on with the pumpkin. Pieces look fairly soft. Now I'm hoping that it's going to come out of the skin fairly easily. Rubber glovies. These just help hold hot things. Get as much of the flesh away from the peel, the skin as you can. Changing sieves for one that isn't so. I'm moving the pumpkin around in the sieve, checking for any bits of peel. It's releasing a lot of water. I'm just going to throw that away. I'm thinking I'd like to reduce this down a bit like the apple butter or even the sweet potato pate. So I'm going to put it in the oven to dry out. Obviously the more moisture that's in there, the longer it's going to take to reduce. I'm sieving it to remove any of the fibrous parts of the pumpkin. I don't necessarily know if it was necessary. There wasn't anything left in the sieve really, so I want about, I have half a tablespoon of malt extract, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. This is the mixed spice. It's quite old, so the flavour's a bit muted. 2 teaspoons in, I suppose. Make your own judgment call, depending on the freshness of your spices. I'm just at this point trying to find things to use it in. I don't like throwing stuff away. 1/4 teaspoon of the ground mace. A little pinch, so maybe like a 1/16 of a teaspoon, so 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger. I've just decided I want that in as well. The flavour will intensify, obviously, as more moisture comes out of it, the flavour will concentrate. Well, I said I was going to weigh it for you, didn't I? 785 grams to be precise. So that's now going into a non-stick. Very important that it's a non-stick roasting pan. I don't know how old that cinnamon is either, so I'm going to ramp it up with ground Saigon cinnamon. This one's 2012, but it still smells incredible. So I'm going to sprinkle it on. That's probably 1/4 teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon. Do it to your own taste. Another 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. Better. Back into the bottom of the oven. Feel much firmer, more stable, but I won't know the result until they've been in the oven for a while. Biscuits have been in for 10 minutes, so let's have a quick look, see how they're doing. Yeah, okay. the biscuifying, as I invented last time. Yeah, they're going a little bit hard. I'll put them back in for another 10 minutes and I'll switch them round. Pull the pumpkin out as well, give that a stir through. Back in again. The biscuits have had another 10 minutes. Hopefully we're going to be around about the sweet spot. The silicone sheet is curled up on one side, so it's bent some of the biscuits. Normally I'd say that's not a problem, but because we need to sandwich them, it needs to be flat ideally. Found a palette knife. So I'm going to try turn these over as delicately as I can. They smell good. The hazelnuts are toasting really nicely. The next stage is putting the cranberry sauce on there. If it's come straight out of the fridge, you might want to just warm it up a little bit. Maybe ping it in the microwave for 30 seconds, give it a stir. You want it to be that kind of consistency, sort of spreadable. So there's 150 grams of cranberry sauce here, and then just smear it on. I'm taking out any big berries because I do need it to be fairly even in thickness. You can be as precise or as messy with this as you like. I guess I'm going somewhere in the middle. I'm going to drop the temperature of the oven to about 125. These are going to go back into the oven just to dry out the cranberry sauce a little bit, just so it's sticky and rather than wet. When I did the jammy custards, I wanted more jam on there, so I'm kind of making sure that there's plenty on these. The reason I turn them over, I just realised I never told you, the bottoms are flat on these, whereas the tops are a bit more uneven. It makes the cranberry sauce application a bit easier on an even surface. Another tablespoon of cranberry sauce. Set the timer for 6 minutes, just to give the sauce time to dry out. I'll give the pumpkin a stir. You can see it is starting to dry out. Yeah, it's getting much thicker. This might actually not need too much more. And if you too have a spice drawer full of stuff that is at least 8 years out of date, feel free to hit subscribe, click that little bell notification, and we'll see if we can't empty some of those spices for you. Back into the oven, have a look at these. Another 5. While I'm waiting for the cranberry sauce to dry out, I'm just going to clean up the pumpkin seeds. So I'm just separating the seeds from the membrane. These make great little snacks. Salt them and then roast them. Now that the biscuits are out, put the temperature up to 170 degrees just to get the pumpkin finished off. Let me know in the comments if there's any sandwich type biscuits you'd like me to have a go at. I'm thinking maybe apple butter and custard. That might be quite good. Like a cinnamon biscuit. Let's see what delicious vegan baked goods I can come up with, because I may be vegan, but I do love me some cake. The pumpkin had another, I don't know, maybe 15-20 minutes. I don't know, I ended up doing something else and forgot. I think what I'm going to do is just leave this in the oven overnight, because there's still a bit of heat in the oven. There's still a bit of heat in the dish and the puree itself. All the water will keep on evaporating, so it should get a little bit thicker overnight, and once it cools down it will set up a bit firmer still. Leave this overnight, and then tomorrow I'll make up the custard and start filling those little sandwiches. Good morning. Look at these little beauties. The cranberry sauce has dried out really well overnight, left it in a warm oven. Pumpkin puree, that's also gone nice and thick, a little bit bouncy. I'll give this a little try. It's good. I think because it's still quite early in the season for pumpkins, it didn't have loads of flavour. Not to worry though, because it's about to get mixed up with sugar and vanilla and some custard powder. So those will combine, I think, and give a really nice flavour to it. In the Jammy Custards video, I mixed the custard by hand. This time I'm going to use a hand whisk, a hand mixer. If I can get it to whip up a bit lighter, it means I can use more filling, but it won't be as sickly. 150 grams of icing sugar. Sifting isn't necessarily vital, but I do recommend it, just because you're going to end up with little clumps of powder. I need 1.5 tablespoons of custard powder. I'll add 50 grams of the concentrated pumpkin puree. I'm keenly aware that if I put the hand mixer straight into this at the moment, because the icing sugar is so light, it's going to go everywhere, and the kitchen will resemble some sort of, I don't know, drug lab. And I don't want to spend the rest of the afternoon cleaning. So I'll do a bit by hand to start combining it, and then I think I'll whip it after that. This may well take some time. Now that the pumpkin and icing sugar are combined, more or less, I'll add in I'll add in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. This might not work, but it's worth a try. Give this a try. The vanilla's definitely pulled everything together. I've decided I'm going to add in maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon of date molasses. I believe this is made by reducing down date juice, and I've done a similar thing to make granola, the mango juice granola. You'll be able to see how I did that. I'll add 1/2 teaspoon of this. It has sweetness, but then it also has a really lovely, deep, rich flavour. It's a bit like treacle or molasses, but not quite as intense. Another 1/2 teaspoon of the custard powder, because the mix is looking a little bit wet. I'm assuming that's because the water content of the pumpkin puree is much higher than vegan butter would be. I really want to ensure that this is going to set hard. The custard powder has rice flour and sugar in it, as well as the cashews, so it should help set really nicely. Give that a little taste. It needs more nutmeg, I think. I've decided to add some freshly grated nutmeg. That's what the inside of a nutmeg looks like. Pretty cool, right? That's probably, it's a pinch, 1/8 of a 1/4 teaspoon maybe, something like that. But it's to taste, really. You could also use ground. Ground spices lose their freshness, as that bottle of mixed spices has demonstrated, and they can go a bit dusty in flavour. This did initially have that sort of flat, dusty sort of flavour to it. But putting the vanilla in there has really helped, like, cut that out. Oh, yeah. Okay, I do love it when a plan comes together. So this is how the biscuits turned out. The oven temperature might have been a little bit high, maybe 150 instead of 160, but we'll find out when we taste it. These are probably going to be somewhat delicate, so just be careful as you're spreading on the custard. Lob it on. You do want a good amount in there. It's a much wetter mix than the original Jammy Custards, but hopefully it will still set really nice and firm. Pop another biscuit on the top, press down and kind of twist it a little bit. Yeah, it's breaking. Twist it a little. If you get any cracks, just turn it over, it's fine. These smell incredible. I'm very excited to eat them. Less excited about the weight though. There's a crack in this one, but that's totally fine. We'll just hide it. I could have made the biscuits thinner, so maybe 20, 25 grams instead of 31. So I would have ended up with a few more. It's your preference really on how thick you like them. But maybe a bit thinner would have been better. The filling should be somewhat firm rather than pasty and gloopy. For a couple of hours, I think, just chilling out should be absolutely wonderful. I don't want to wait. I really don't want to wait, but I'm gonna. Before I went to bed last night, I roasted the pumpkin seeds. So you can hear they're lovely and dry, toasty. To make them, it's really simple. There is a video. Just boil them in salty water for 5 minutes. Drain, pat dry, sprinkle more salt in, put them in the oven, 175 degrees C for, I think I did 15 minutes, shaking a couple of times just to mix everything around again, and then just let them cool down. But yeah, so for something that usually gets chucked in the bin after prepping a pumpkin, it's a delicious little snack. This little sandwich of deliciousness is going to be amazing in my mouth, I think. It's not collapsing when I pick it up, so that's a great start. Oh, holy that's good. I'm not picking up the sugar crystals this time. I wonder if the extra oil has dissolved it. If you want to watch me put more holiday seasons inside biscuits, hit subscribe, tap the bell icon, and you'll never miss a one. I've obviously been left with quite a lot of pumpkin puree, and I think what I'd like to do with it is make a pate spread sort of thing. So there's some nice spices in there already. The only sweetness in there is coming from the malt extract, and because it's a very mellow sweetness, it's going to lend itself quite well to a savoury dish. Maybe some mushrooms.